right, we're going to continue on here. Retirement planning. What are some methods for retirement savings? Well, for personal investment, and a lot of these you may be familiar with, but we're going to kind of review some aspects of them. Traditional IRA. So you have heard of IRAs, and sometimes we get questions from people saying, hey, can my wife and I open an IRA? Well, no. So what does an IRA stand for? Individual. It's an individual retirement account. So you can only have one owner of that account. So it's a traditional IRA. So let's say you made $50,000 and you want to contribute to your traditional IRA and you want to contribute $5,000. If you make that contribution, you can deduct that from your taxable income for that year. So instead of having $50,000 of income, you have $45,000 of income. So you have a tax deduction. So it's a benefit in the short term because you're able to save taxes today. One other thing about a traditional IRA you want to consider is that it's tax deferred. So when do you pay taxes? You pay taxes when you withdraw money from that account. Okay, so you're not paying taxes when you contribute, you're paying taxes at the end when you're withdrawing it. So gross tax deferred does not impact your taxes from year to year. So there's something else called an RMD. There's a lot of acronyms in the financial world. So an RMD, and you know what it stands for. An RMD is a required minimum distribution. So remember we talked about how these taxes on the IRA are deferred and you haven't paid them yet. At some point you're going to pay them. And the IRS has been waiting a long time to get their hands on that money. So when you get to a certain age, and right now it's age 73, you are going to be required to take out a certain amount from your IRA or any tax-deferred retirement account that you have. So you're probably thinking, how much is that going to be? Well, that is based on a couple of things. The amount that was in that retirement account December 31st of the year before, and also your age and your, basically there's going to be a table that they're going to use about like a mortality rate. So they're going to look at your age as well. It can be somewhat complicated, but the thing to keep in mind is generally it's about 4% of the account you're going to be required to take out when you're at age 73. So that is called an RMD. Another thing to keep in mind is the age 59 and a half. I don't know how they come up with these ages, why it's not 59, why it's not 60, but it's 59 and a half. Once you get to be that age, you can take withdrawals out of your IRA without having a penalty. Okay, so 59 and a half is a key age to remember. If you take it out before that age, you get penalized. You get 10% penalty on that. So keep in mind, 59 and a half is the age where you're able to take out a withdrawal without getting penalized on that. If you inherit an IRA and you're a spouse, then it just becomes you're the beneficiary of that. But if you're not a spouse and you inherit an IRA, you have what's called a beneficiary IRA, and you have 10 years to take out all of the money from that IRA. So that's something to keep in mind if you're a beneficiary, because each year you want to be mindful of the fact that that's going to be taxable to you. So many times it's a benefit to spread that out over 10 years, but when that 10 years is up, you're going to be required to make sure all the funds in that IRA have been withdrawn. So that's when you inherit an IRA. So with the traditional IRA, the taxes are deferred. So a Roth IRA is the opposite. So when you make a contribution to a Roth IRA, you're taxed on the contribution going in, but that is the last time you're going to be taxed. The Roth IRA, as soon as that's invested, that money is going to grow and grow and grow, and as it grows, you don't have to worry about the tax on it because it's growing tax-free. So a Roth IRA benefits you over the long term, all right? So keep in mind, similar to the IRA, 59 and a half, you don't want to take out any of your funds from your IRA because you will have a penalty with a Roth IRA withdrawal before 59 and a half. But once you're 59 and a half, all that growth and your contributions are available to you tax-free. You can take out your contributions at any time, but that growth is what you want to keep in there and have that growing for you. So once you're 59 and a half, you're able to withdraw from that and not have any penalty. If you open a Roth IRA, let's say you're age 58, you have to wait 5 years and you owe about 59.5 before you can take out the growth on that Roth IRA. One other nice thing about a Roth is that there is no RMD. So there is no requirement for you to take anything out of that Roth. So when you hit age 73, you're not required to take anything out. And as you're still working, let's say you're working in your 60s, even up to age 70, as long as you have taxable earned income, you can still contribute to that Roth as well as your traditional IRA. But the nice thing about the Roth is that there is no RMD. Another nice thing about a Roth is that as you're thinking about your beneficiaries down the line, as they inherit your Roth IRA, that's more that they're inheriting tax-free. So that's another thing to keep in mind for your beneficiaries. There's no age limit to contribute to either of these accounts, but the key thing is you have to have earned income, taxable earned income. And if you still have that, and it's not, there's a limit to how much you can contribute each year. So under age 50, you can contribute up to $7,000 a year. And as of 2024, you can contribute up to $8,000 a year if you're over age 50. But you have to have at least that much of taxable earned income before you make that contribution. Another thing to keep in mind is this may not apply to everybody, but there are income limits. So if you make a certain amount, you are not able to make a contribution to your IRA and Roth IRA. This year, I believe they've increased that up to that $240,000. So for people who make that, they are not able to make contributions to the Roths or the traditional. So now you may be thinking here, okay, I have a traditional IRA. Can't I just move all that money over to my Roth? Yes, but you want to be very careful when you do that. We're going to talk in just a few minutes about what you want to be concerned about and make sure you're very careful about when you decide to do that. It's called a Roth conversion. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So we talked about the personal sides of retirement savings, the traditional IRA, the Roth IRA. An employer also has a way for you to help grow your long-term investments, and that's through a 401k, it could be a 403b, TSP. And you're probably thinking, can I have all these things? Are these all different? Are they the same? Well, these are labels. So keep in mind, they're just labels put on an investment account. So a 401k would be through your employer. 403b, if you work for a church or a charitable organization, that's the name they give that account, 403b. But these all are similar to a traditional IRA, that they all grow tax deferred. 401ks and 403bs are great vehicles for you because if you're able to contribute to them, and your employer many times can match your contributions, it's free money for you. So that is really, really something to take advantage of if you're able to have that. Just recently read that there's 40% of people don't know what a 401k is. So either they have one and don't know they have one, or don't understand it, or they've never heard one, and they may be able to have one and don't know about it. So I thought that was a phenomenal. I couldn't believe when I read that, but it was a reliable source. 40%. So 401k, if you have the ability and the opportunity to take part in your 401k, please do so. But again, those all grow tax deferred, similar to a traditional IRA. So you're going to be taxed on that when you take that out. So what are some retirement goals? Be debt free. What are some big expenses and big debts that people incur as they get, as they're going through the investment process and over the long term? The biggest one that hangs over everyone's heads is a mortgage. So if at all possible, prioritize, make sure that there is no mortgage when you are approaching retirement or in retirement. You're going to be on a fixed income in retirement for the most part, so you don't want to be able to be in a situation where it's harder to preserve or even accumulate investments if you are handing over a portion of your income to creditors when you're in retirement. So being debt-free is so important. We talked about that yesterday. Drew talked about that even in the budget and debt elimination session yesterday. It's so important to be debt-free. And if you know what your mortgage is, and you are approaching retirement, let's say it's 10, 15 years down the road, figure out how much you owe on that mortgage and see over that time period what it's going to take to get that mortgage paid down. Know your monthly average expenses, and this goes back to the importance of budgeting. As you're approaching retirement, Staying out of debt is so important, but some people don't have any idea of what they're going to need to live on in retirement. So if you have a budget in place, and this is especially important as you're approaching retirement, let's say within 5 or 10 years, and you have a good idea of what your retirement income is going to look like, what are your monthly expenses? What are you going to need to live comfortably in retirement? How will you know how much you're going to need? That's where that budget comes into play. So important. So knowing your average monthly expenses is so key to knowing how much you're going to need. It's not going to be the same amount for everybody. Many people have different goals and different lifestyles, how they want their retirement to look like. So there's no broad brush, no general answer for what you're going to need. It really comes down to what your monthly income is going to look like and how you want your retirement to look like. Are you going to be doing a lot of traveling? Are you going to want to be seeing family? So it really comes down to each individual situation. But knowing your monthly expenses is very key. And we get this a lot. I don't want to outlive my money. And how are you going to know that you're not going to outlive your money? There's something called a sustainable withdrawal rate, and we need to understand what that is. So in retirement, we're different sources of income. So you could have Social Security income, and you could also have other sources of income. Maybe you have a pension. So if you look on page 36, I believe, turn that to that page with me here. You can see in that chart, the first line, Social Security, $2,000 a month, $24,000 annually. You notice how it says higher of the two. We didn't put both Social Security benefits there. Anybody know why we just put the higher? Yes. Yes, correct. So, and we talked about this at dinner for those of you that were here. So for two spouses, if one spouse passes away, the higher of the two Social Security benefits is going to remain. So at some point, you're going to be living, one of the spouses will be living off of that higher benefit. So we don't want to factor both in, we want to factor just the higher one to give you a little bit of cushion there. So factor in the higher of the two, so you can see there, $2,000 a month, $24,000 annually. Let's say there's a pension as well. So you have $500 a month in pension, $6,000 annually. And this is where it's so key to know your monthly expenses. If you have a good idea of what you're going to need in retirement, your average monthly living expenses, you're going to subtract that and see you have a deficit of $1,700 or $20,000 annually. Sustainable withdrawal rate, that is the rate that you can withdraw from your retirement accounts without having the danger of depleting your account or preventing it from growing. Generally, you can reasonably expect a retirement account to grow about 6 to 8% over the long term. Not necessarily every year, but over the long term. So you don't want to take out from your retirement account more than what it's growing. A sustainable withdrawal rate, about 3 to 5% is reasonable. We have 5% here, that's on the higher end. We like to see about 4% as an average. If you can keep it to 3%, that's ideal, especially with inflation. But about 3 to 5%, and if you withdraw that amount from your retirement accounts, that's a reasonable expectation that you are going to continue to be able to have growth in your retirement account in retirement. So you take $20,400, that's your deficit, and you divide that by the withdrawal rate. We just chose 5% on the high end there of a sustainable withdrawal rate, and you would need $408,000 in your retirement account to meet your goals with income in retirement. So that is a basic way you can look and see as you get closer to retirement, give you a better idea of what you're going to need in retirement. So sustainable withdrawal rate is something that is very, very important because you're not going to have all of your income, more than likely, not all from Social Security and pension. You're going to have to supplement that with additional income from your retirement accounts. Understanding Social Security. We talked a little bit about this earlier as well. What are the benefits of delaying Social Security? Every year, starting at age 62, 62 is the first age, the earliest age that you can start taking Social Security benefits, going all the way up to age 70. every year there's about an 8% increase in benefits for Social Security. So if you're able to delay taking Social Security, you're basically giving yourself an 8% raise each year. So that benefit is good. Every year you delay, you want to be able to increase that amount. And that amount, like we said earlier, is really beneficial to your spouse because remember, the higher of the two benefits is what remains after one spouse passes away. So the longer you wait, the higher that Social Security benefit is. And if a spouse lives to age 85 or 90 or 95, that amount is locked in. Okay? So there are some cost of living increases each year, or some years, not necessarily every year, but some years. But overall, that benefit is locked in. So once that Social Security benefit's taken, it doesn't change. So you're locked into that. Social Security and your spouse. So we talked about how when you're, we also talked earlier about when you're married and you are continuing to work and you take your Social Security, one thing I want to add to that is that if you are still working and you are making more than $59,000 a year and you're pulling your Social Security benefit as well, they are going to take part of that Social Security benefit. For $1 for every $2 you're over that maximum amount that you're making. So your Social Security benefit will be reduced. So you may think it's wise to take that Social Security benefit early, but actually you're getting less of a benefit if you are still working. So it's something to keep in mind as well. I think it's the last year, the final year before your full retirement age, it's $1 for every $3 you're over. But once you're full retirement age, that income limit goes away. So you don't have to worry about that once you're full retirement age. But before full retirement age and you're still working, keep that in mind. So Social Security and your spouse, we talked about how important that is to wait because that would be helpful for your spouse. One other thing is when one spouse is able to take their full retirement benefit, full retirement age, and they start taking their benefit, if the other spouse has a lower benefit and it's less than half, let's say as an example, one spouse has $2,000 in a Social Security benefit, and the other spouse has a $500 benefit. Once the spouse with the higher benefit starts taking his benefit, the other spouse can jump up to half of the other spouse's benefit, as long as that spouse is receiving his benefit. So that's something to keep in mind. If your one spouse's benefit is less than half, that's something that you can take advantage of down the road. Many people are not aware of that. It's not something that happens automatically, so you have to make sure you let Social Security know about that, but you can take advantage of that down the road. So, yeah, good question.
So let's say you accidentally took your own Social Security, right, and then your spouse has a higher one. Are you able to, like, at that point, change it and take 50% of that for your spouses when they are trying to claim it? Or do you have a bunch of, like, things you have to change, or you just start with the one you took it?
So you can start your own Social Security if you're the lower benefit. And when your spouse starts to get their Social Security, you can bump up. Yeah, so good question. Yeah. So Social Security options following divorce. If you are divorced and you have been divorced, you were married for over 10 years, you are eligible to receive the Social Security benefit of your ex-spouse. And the interesting thing about this is that that ex-spouse does not have to know you're receiving that benefit. They don't have to be notified. So that happens from time to time. So if you are divorced, if your benefit is lower and lesser than your ex-spouse's benefit, you can receive their benefit. Now, if you get remarried, then that stops. So you would just get your current spouse's. But if you stay unmarried and you are divorced, you are able to take advantage of that in that situation. So. Reach out to your Social Security office with all these types of questions because they're not going to do it automatically. These are things you have to be proactive about, but I want to make sure people are aware that they can do that. So what are retirement planning challenges? What are some things that are going to be a challenge for us down the road? We just talked about it. Death of a spouse, a loss of Social Security, loss of pension. So think about your spouse as you're making these decisions, especially with pensions. If you have an opportunity with a pension to have a survivor benefit with your pension, not all pensions do, especially some that have been around a while, but more often than not now, they're allowing you the ability to have a survivor benefit to a pension. So keep in mind that you may be able to help your spouse with that by doing that. You get less of a benefit, but you're able to help your spouse have a higher percentage of that pension should you pass away. So the death of your spouse is something that is a challenge for income in retirement. Medical expenses and long-term care. Half of Americans in their 50s are going to need long-term care. And many people think long-term care is a nursing home. It actually covers a lot of different costs that can help you. It could be in-home care. It could be, doesn't necessarily have to be being part of a retirement community or a nursing home. There are other ways that long-term care can help. But never before has long-term care been so needed, and never before has it been so expensive. So it's definitely a need. Like I said, more and more Americans are living longer, so more and more Americans are going to need that. So that is a challenge. We're going to talk in a few minutes to hear about some choices that you have with long-term care insurance and the different types that are out there. But health savings accounts are another option as well that allows you to invest into an account, and then when you make a withdrawal from that, if it's for a medical reason, you can make a withdrawal tax-free. So health savings accounts are another possibility.
How long does long-term insurance last?
Mm.
So you buy it, and then you decide to use it, say you're 80-year-old.
Yeah.
How long will it last?
Generally, most policies last 1 to 3 years. That's the average length of time that people who are in the need of the long-term care facility. So 3 years is the high end.
Right.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, if you go into that,
Mhm.
I remember reading about this, what turned me away from that, is that you go into these, they only guarantee you 3 years.
Yeah.
And you pay all this money for, like, say you started at 30 years old, that's a lot of money to pay out for just 3 years. I grant you, it's expensive,
Yeah.
but I was just wondering, because I want to make sure I understood that right.
Yeah. But the average is 1 to 3 years. There are different types of policies now that you may have a death benefit, or you may be able to get something back out of it for all the premiums that you paid. They're called hybrid policies. So the insurance companies that are offering these are catching on that they're realizing most people cannot afford these policies. So they're trying to give them more incentive because they know how necessary long-term care is. So they're hybrid policies. So instead of having a benefit and then you lose it and you pay all this money, let's say you don't need the long-term care, there's policies out there that'll give you a death benefit as well. So there's some nuances with some of these policies, but the insurance companies are realizing they're trying to make it more accessible for people. It's still very, very difficult. The sweet spot is usually about age 55 to 65 is when most people can afford that. If you get it too young, you're gonna, like you said, you're gonna be paying out all this over a lot of different big time period. But if you wait too long, it gets exponentially higher because you may already have health challenges, and it just becomes higher when you're older to get them. So there's a very limited time where you, like about 55 to 65, which is the best time to get those policies. So yeah, but it's a challenge for sure. And one thing you want to keep in mind too is longevity in your family. Is there going to be more of a chance that you're going to need that long-term care? If you have parents that are living well into their 90s or late 80s, there's longevity, there's a good chance you may as well, so you may end up needing that. Another factor in that, we're going to talk about this in a minute, but if you have family nearby, or if you're on your own and you don't have family nearby that can help take care of you, there's a good chance you're going to need some sort of long-term care as well. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. But it affects everybody. Like I said, half of the people in their 50s are going to need long-term care at some point. And that's just the nature of where we're at with longevity and people living longer. So definitely a challenge to think about. Cost of living increases. This is hitting home even as we speak with all the inflation that we've been experiencing the past couple of years. So we talked about how long retirement could be over 20, 30 years on average for many people. So cost of living increases, it's going to continue to go up. So that is a challenge as well. And that's why it's so important to keep invested. We talked about this at dinner. Don't think that just because you're in retirement, then you have everything you need. If you could stay invested conservatively, but invested, there's a good chance you're going to need that growth for sustainability for income as you get older in retirement. So cost of living increases is something to keep in mind as well. And planning a move in retirement. There's different options here. Many people choose to downsize. You may have a larger home and you're an empty nester and you had children and all of a sudden you've got this big house and you may be in good health, but that may not be around forever. You may think, you know, when I'm 75 or 80, I may not want to take care of this big house that I've been taking care of for so long and I had help with before. So downsizing makes a lot of sense in retirement or as you approach retirement. So you could sell a larger home and move into a smaller home and use the proceeds maybe to invest or to save. So that is something that you could consider. With children, and this is interesting too, this doesn't apply to every family unit, but it applies to some. Having communication with your children. I was just working with a gentleman that I serve at Life Financial, and he and his wife just turned 60, and they moved in with their daughter and son-in-law. And it wasn't anything that was forced. It was something that they had talked about for years. For about 5 or 10 years, they had a discussion with them, and they had a house that they were able to accommodate them, and now they have a place to live in their retirement years because there's going to be no moving at all. So they have a place, and they have the peace of mind, and they also are close to their family. Now that situation, again, may not apply to every family. There may be children or parents that maybe don't want to live that close to each other for various reasons, but you may have a child that you may want to do that with and share that with and have that proximity to your grandchildren. Have that communication with your children as you get older, because there may be some situations where that could benefit you as well. Not necessarily for everybody, but it could be a benefit for you. So living with your children is a possibility. And of course, retirement communities as well. This allows you to still maintain your independence, but still have the ability to live with other people and have social time with other people, which is very crucial to many people as they get older to maintain that contact with others. So retirement communities, and many people sometimes use the proceeds from downsizing to put a down payment on staying at a retirement community. So there are different options for some people there as well. So rethinking your retirement. We don't necessarily like the term retire. We like the term redeployment. So when we talk about retiring, we don't like necessarily think about retiring from something, but what are you retiring to? It's not necessarily when you get to a certain point you think, okay, now I can go to the beach all day and relax. Well, there's nothing wrong with doing that in retirement. We want you to be able to enjoy that. But there is an opportunity for you to continue in service and maybe another job, maybe working for a nonprofit organization or a charitable organization, or having time to volunteer. We actually have a little part in our book there about an example from the book of Numbers. And the Bible doesn't say a lot about retirement, but this is a great example of how when you get to a certain age, just because you're stopping something doesn't mean you're stopping everything. You can still serve the Lord in different ways. We have folks that we serve and they get into retirement and it's the happiest time for them. Instead of being a stressful time where they're adapting to a different lifestyle, and they sometimes can maybe even get depressed because they're not with other people. They're with their churches, they're going on missions trips, they're mentoring young people. There are so many opportunities that the Lord can still use us even in our retirement years. So think of it as, what are you retiring to, not necessarily what am I retiring from. Tax planning. We touched a little bit about this at dinner. Preparing your taxes, you can self-prepare, and many people do that, but there is some risk in doing that. We talked about a lot of the tax law change each year, and there's a lot of complexities to our taxes. I talked about a gentleman who came into our office and had a tax return, and he had prepared his taxes, and it was done in pencil and paper. And we did end up finding that there were some irregularities in that, but it's very, very risky to do your own taxes in that way. Having an extra set of eyes looking at that, we talked about the gentleman who had the 6 children and made that mistake unbeknownst to him. He didn't realize it, but he had forgotten to give the child tax credit each year. So self-preparing your taxes, you can do it, but it's also helpful to have a second set of eyes looking at that, because there may be some things that you miss. And there's 4 reasons we have to seek a professional tax service. If you are self-employed or you own your own business, many times there are a lot of complexities to the regulations with taxes if you own your own business. So if you have your own business, we say that we try to help you with your taxes and have you get as much back morally, legally, and ethically as possible. So if there's a lot of complexity and a lot of considerations in managing like a potential tax liability, having someone who's a professional can help you with that and try to maximize that for you, especially if you're self-employed or own your own business. If you own investment assets requiring complicated tracking, so if you have investment accounts where there may be capital gains or short-term gains or long-term gains, having someone making sure those are recorded properly and being able to help you with that is important, especially when there's tax withholding, dividends, R&Ds, another example. So if you own investment assets requiring complicated tracking, having a professional help you with that is key. And major financial challenges. If you're selling your home or buying a home, or you have a change of income, or you're navigating a major life change, your tax one year may look completely different from the following year. And so having someone who's a professional help you navigate through that is helpful. And sleeping better at night. That would be a very good reason to have somebody help you with your taxes. You never want to make a mistake with your taxes by accident or not mean to. So if you have somebody who's helping you with your taxes and it's complex and you're able to get that done, and you had someone who helped you who was a professional and was able to guide you through some of the nuances and challenges of that, you may be well-meaning, but you want to make sure you avoid any mistakes. You don't really want to have that phone call or that knock at the door from your IRS saying, oh, by the way, your tax return 2 years ago wasn't correct. So this is an opportunity for you to just know you can rest easy that it's being done, you've done the right way. So investing with tax planning in mind, we did touch on this at dinner. I want to go through this again with you. Roth conversions. Okay, this is a great way potentially to save taxes. So if you have a traditional IRA and you have, let's say, $200,000 in your IRA, and you have a Roth IRA, and you think, hey, can I just move all that money over to my Roth? You can, but here's the thing. You're going to be taxed on all of that money when it goes into the Roth. Because remember, the Roth grows tax-free. You're taxed going in. So what is a Roth conversion? This is an opportunity for you to convert a portion of your assets in your traditional IRA and convert it over to a Roth. So when is that a good time to do that? In retirement, when your income is lower, that's an ideal time. So when your income is lower and you haven't reached R&D age, you may want to convert a little bit each year, and your tax bracket will be lower, so that's a good time to do it. Another time to consider it is when the market is down for an extended period of time, because you're able to convert a larger amount of your IRA over to your Roth because the value is down. So there are different opportunities for you to do that with Roth conversions. Some people actually in retirement could be in a 0% tax bracket. So you may not have to pay a tax at all in doing that. And remember, the benefits of the Roth is that it grows tax-free, but it also helps your beneficiaries because they're going to be inheriting more tax-free, and you're lessening the amount of your required minimum distribution, that RMD at age 73. So there are some benefits to doing that. But if you're thinking about doing a Roth conversion, please see a financial advisor or your tax preparer before you do that, because you never want to unknowingly bump yourself up into a different tax bracket. So let's say you convert $10,000 in a year and you're hovering, $5,000 below a different tax bracket. It would not make sense for you to do that. So getting outside help, another reason having a professional tax preparer or a financial advisor to help you would be beneficial for you. But Roth conversions are a great way to invest with tax planning in mind. And qualified charitable distributions. Here's another acronym. We were talking about all these acronyms. We talked RMD. This is a QCD, qualified charitable distribution. We talked a little bit about this earlier as well, for those of you that were there. So when you get to that magical age of 73, and we said, the IRS is waiting to get their hands on your money. They're very excited. You finally got to be at 73. And you can actually tell the IRS, no, you're not going to get your hands on my money. Well, how can that happen? let's say you have an RMD, required minimum distribution. If your income is such that Social Security and your pension income and maybe your monthly automatic withdrawals from your retirement account is sufficient, let's say you don't need that income, you can tell the IRS, don't send that to me. Send it to my church. Send it to Crisis Pregnancy Center. Send it to a charitable organization that I have been supporting over the years. Double benefit here. You don't get taxed. You're meeting your required minimum distribution, and you're blessing another ministry. Some people actually tithe out of their with a QCD for the year. You can do that as well. Yep.
That count as income to do that here, it does not.
No, that's another huge benefit. So if you were taking that as an RMD, that would be considered income to you. So you're not taxed on that. And it goes, so it's a win in a number of ways. So this is one of the things that I love most about what I do, because I'm able to help people choose a ministry that they can bless. So you take a potential negative, a required minimum distribution. I got to take all this money and get taxed on it. But you're flipping the tables and saying, you know what, I'm going to bless ministry and kingdom work with those funds. So some people you can mix it up as well. You don't have to do the whole thing as a QCD. You can do part of it as an RMD. Let's say you do need that income. You can have part of that come to you, but you can say a certain portion of that can go to the church. So you can mix that up as well. One thing I do want to note is that the age for a QCD, it used to be the same age as the RMD. It used to be age 70 and a half. Here's another one of those ages. I don't know how they came up with that, but it was 70 and a half. It's still 70 and a half. So the RMD age has increased to age 73. You can now still do a QCD, a qualified charitable distribution, at age 70 and a half. So many people, once they turn 70 and a half, are able to bless their church, either tithing, they can tithe off of the QCD, or they can bless other ministries with it. So that has not changed. So 70 and a half is the age you want to remember for the QCD. Yeah, you had a question?
Yeah, so for that, you would have to donate or tithe the entire contribution, because if it comes into your hand, then it's taxable.
Right.
And so then if, like, I just need to mention that first, so we go back to where we were before, right? We were talking about the 4%,
Mm.
right? Am I lost on that?
No, you don't have to tie for donating the full amount. You can do a portion of that QCD, not the full amount.
Okay, so
And you can get multiple churches or charities to be able to get that money too.
So let's say I need to live on part of it, but I wanna tithe the other part. The tithing is tax-free if it goes from there to the church without being taxed.
Right.
The one what I need to live on gets taxed.
Yeah, you're not tithing money you've been taxed on.
Okay,
You're
I
tithing
wasn't
money you
sure if
haven't been
it was
taxed
all
on.
or nothing, and it was
Mm-hmm.
not-
Yeah, so qualified charitable distributions are not required. The only thing that's required is that required minimum distribution. But a qualified charitable distribution, you can choose to do on your own and not have to take the RMD yourself. But you can split it up. So you can send some to the church, you can receive some of it as well. So you have your choice on that. Yeah. QCDs are great opportunity to use the resources that you have saved and built up and bless others and not be taxed on if you don't want to. So it's a great thing. We so enjoy doing that. Donating appreciated stock, we touched upon this earlier as well. So if you have stock that has appreciated, let's say it's Amazon stock from 1987, I don't know. But it could be something that maybe has grown in a lot of value and you're gonna be hit with a big capital gains tax if you want to liquidate that. And let's say your income is such that you're doing okay, you don't need to get those funds, you can donate appreciated stock to your church or to a charitable organization. The key thing here is making sure that they have a brokerage account. So if your church or a ministry that you want to support has that brokerage account, they can receive that donated stock and they can sell that as well. And if it's used for ministry, there's no tax. So it's a win all over for that. So donating appreciated stock is another thing we enjoy doing because it's a benefit. So you're avoiding the tax on that, capital gains tax, which could be substantial if it's a stock that has grown a lot or you've had for a while, and you're blessing the church at the same time. So Review your tax return with your financial advisor every year. If you have someone that you're working with, we talked about this a little bit earlier as well, but if you have a tax return, make sure that your financial advisor is reviewing that and looking over that. Because if you have a second set of eyes looking over all the different tax angles, making sure things are registered correctly, making sure a QCD is recorded properly. I think I shared with you earlier, we caught that on one just this past year. So having your tax advice, and also with conversions. So if you're potentially a candidate for a Roth conversion, your tax preparer can give you good advice and counsel as far as whether that's a good year to do that, which account to take it from. So there's a lot of different things that your financial advisor, it's good for them to see your tax return every year to be able to walk you through that and navigate that with you. Insurance planning, we'll just touch on this quickly because we're finishing up here, but what is the purpose of life insurance? Life insurance, its purpose mainly is to buy time and also to replace income. So if you have a life insurance policy and the proceeds from that policy, if a spouse were to pass away, you need to replace that income that was lost when that spouse passes away. So you're replacing income is one of the main reasons, but also buying yourself time so that your other investments have time to grow. And so ideally, when that policy is up, you have other sources of income that would take the place of what that policy would have provided for you. So there are two types, permanent and temporary. Permanent is another term for that is whole life insurance. That's many times can be more expensive than term policies or temporary policies. The point of whole life is to have it last your whole life. So that's why it's called whole life. There's a death benefit to it as well many times. So there are some advantages to permanent or whole life policies. Mostly temporary life insurance policy is what most people need. That is a type of life insurance that it's for a temporary amount of time, a term. Many times it's 20 years, 30 years, over a certain period of time for a certain amount of money. The nice thing about temporary life insurance is basically you're paying less. It's less expensive than whole life. But it's buying you time and it would replace a lost income as well. So temporary is just that. It's at some point that's going to stop. So if it's for a 20 or 30-year period, at the end of that period, that life insurance policy will go away. So there's no death benefit, no continuing benefit to that. How much do you need? Rule of thumb, that for every $1,000 in monthly income, you need about $250,000 of life insurance if you need to replace that lost income. So there's different situations, different nuances there for each individual situation with life insurance, but that's a general rule of thumb is to give you an idea of how much you would need. And then long-term care insurance, we talked about this earlier, so we won't spend too much time on this, but there are three options for long-term care insurance. Self-insuring, which not many people are able to do because of the expenses of long-term care. So self-insuring is an option, but you have to be putting away quite a bit, and a lot of that will be coming out of your long-term investments. So it's not realistic for most people, unfortunately. Traditional policy, we talked about that, where you're purchasing access to long-term care for a period of time, usually about 1 to 3 years. But if you don't use it, you lose it. So that's what a traditional life long-term care insurance policy is. Then there's something called a limited pay policy, which we were talking about earlier. That's a hybrid policy where you're able to get a benefit, a death benefit out of that as well. So you're not necessarily going to lose everything you put into it, but that's more of a mix, almost like a whole and term policy together for long-term care. So there's some different nuances with that as well. One thing I did want to mention before we close is that many people, as they're getting older, are going through a crisis because they have health challenges, they have medical challenges, and because these long-term care policies were not in place years ago or even offered years ago, many folks are getting to an age where they need that care, and there's medical challenges, and families do not know how to move forward. So there are crisis care attorneys that are helping people, and they can meet with your families, they can sit with you, all the people that are affected by this, and they can sit down with you and they know all the nuances and all the details of how you can get that care that you need. There are a lot of different ways you can do that. It depends on what what state you're in, there's different regulations, but a crisis planning with an estate care attorney could be very helpful for many people. So if you know someone who's in a situation, they're in a desperate situation and they really don't know what to do, there are people available out there that can help you walk your family through that. So we said at the outset, I asked you, what are your two big ideas? I know it's a lot of information, you have it there in your book. If there are two big ideas that you have, at least something that you can take away from and you can apply today or tomorrow, let us know what that is. And even write that down as a reminder for you. I think there's a space there in your book. What two big ideas, what was something that you took away from tonight? What's something that you learned? What's something that you thought you knew but maybe didn't know all about until tonight? So if there's two big ideas that you have, what are some things that you can take away from tonight and apply? And the ultimate goal tonight was, how can we be the best stewards of our resources? So if there's something that you can apply and you can apply that to your biblical stewardship journey that you're on, how can you be a better steward of what God's entrusted you with going forward, looking towards the future? That was what our goal was here tonight. So hopefully you've been able to learn something and been able to apply something that we discussed tonight. And let us know as well what it was that you learned. We'd love to hear about that. So start today again. Don't procrastinate. We can help. Drew said it earlier as well. We have free personal stewardship reviews that are available. We have enjoyed so much getting to know some of you. We've met with some of you the past few days. We have one more day tomorrow here with you. I'm pretty sure we have a pretty open day for the most part. I know we have a few review meetings, but if you're able to come and meet with either Drew or myself or both of us, you can have a budget debt elimination session and also one about things that we talked about tonight: retirement planning, tax planning, estate planning. We are available here for one more day. And if you can't make it tomorrow, make sure that you get in touch with us, because we have a card on the table. If you want to have an online or a phone review with us, we are always available. Access to us does not stop tomorrow night. We are still available to you as a resource, and that's what our mission is. We want to be able to be an encouragement to you and a resource to you going forward. And so you will be able to access us at any time. So let us know how we can best help you. Finishing strong tomorrow night, we have one more session. We talked about biblical stewardship for today. Tomorrow we're going to talk about how we can have an impact on eternity through our estate planning. It's a great session. So many things that I still am learning from it. Sometimes we have sessions where there's someone has a question, and it's so exciting to see how we can have an impact on eternity through decisions that we're making today through our estate planning. And there's a lot of great information tomorrow. Drew's going to be leading that. And there's going to be an opportunity for you, if you don't have your legal documents in place, for you to take advantage of a special deal that we have that will be able to help you do that. So if you come tomorrow night, it's going to be a great time. Proactive estate planning, how it can impact your family and church. And lastly, I want to remind you about our Stewardology podcast. And you've heard a little bit of that already. If you're able to, you can scan that code as well. We have information on the table, but we have a podcast. We're approaching 200 podcasts. And you can go to that website, stewardologypodcast.com. You can type in a word. You can type in retirement. You can type in annuity. You can type in whatever you're looking for. And every podcast that had that topic will come up. And like I said, we have almost 200. So there's a good chance what you're looking for, we have a podcast on that. And it's great. It's usually about 30 to 40 minutes, I think. 40 minutes. It's done every week. And it's good information, and there's always something new to glean from it, and it's where theology and stewardship meet, is what we call it. And it's a great podcast. We've had some great responses about it. Just in the past week, we had somebody from Kenya. Was it Africa? I think we had somebody. A listener in Africa, of all places. We had somebody, just all over the country. So we're always hearing from people who are being blessed by that. So I would encourage you to take part in that and listen to that and be blessed by that. So again, thank you for tonight. If there's any other questions, let us know. I'm available. Drew's available. Hopefully this was a good time for you to actually hear about the different ways that we can plan for the future. Like I said, planning for the future with confidence, and hopefully this was an encouragement